Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerd and nerdettes. Now today, we're going to be doing something I don't think I've seen yet on YouTube before. I don't know if that's because YouTube has guidelines about breaking stuff or things that may look graphic, but for the sake of argument, let's say this is a cooking channel and we are learning to tenderize some meat. So what we have here are some ribs. I went with cow or beef ribs because I feel like pig ribs, even though they're more analogous to a human, dead tissue, as I've said before, is less resilient to impact and damage than living tissue. So I'm gonna go a little bit heavier on this because if it works on this, as a result, I'm imagining it's gonna work just as well on a person. So the goal of the video today is quite simple. I'm going to take some slings and some rocks of varying sizes and weights and test it against exposed ribs. And these are larger than normal. Like I said, you could say they're a giant's rib or, a Goliath's ribs. But that being said, I'm going to go through there. Then I'm going to add various soft armor types. I have this 29 layers of linen here. I have this riveted mail here as well. I want to try and pair those up and see if that's going to cause any diffusion of that impact. And then also, depending on how well things go and how good they handle, I have a couple swords. I have the spatha, I have this short sword here, and I have the pilum here as well. So kind of depending on how things go, we may branch out a little bit. So this first test is going to be exposed ribs. I'm using about medium-sized rocks. These are about 5 ounces here, river rock, so not super dense, but still good to throw. And I want to check and see, I'm going to get a shot from here, and then I'll get a close-up shot as well, just how the ribs react to like just a standard throw. I'm not going to go full tilt boogie, just to kind of get some good impact on there. All right, so we got 3 good strikes on this. The first strike was right here, and that caved that rib in a little bit. You can see it dented it, didn't crack it entirely. The other one was right here, glanced to the side a little bit, nothing crazy. The last one separated in here, and that was right in here. So you can see where it broke, and it came over top of the rib right there. So it pressed it in right there. Wasn't enough to crack that rib, but again, these were with smaller sized rocks as well. So what I want to do now is ramp it up to a larger size rock, get a little more force and see what happens there. All right, so when I'm saying larger rocks, I don't mean something obscenely big. It's going to be more analogous, to this size here, something like that. So probably about another 7 ounces, I'd guess, something. So not like 10 or 12, anything crazy like that. But I think this will get a lot more force and a lot more impact. I want to try and see how it does. So with the slightly heavier rock, I hit right here, and that actually hit mainly meat, not so much in the bone. The first shot was a little low, second one was here. So I want to try and get another close up and hit one of the bigger ribs right in here. So we got a definitive break in here. So one of the shots hit the rib at the bottom portion. So this rib is relatively thin overall. This would probably be similar to like an intercostal muscle or even a full rib on a human. So that one here at the bottom hit that hanging rib and cracked that in half. So that was with the heavier rock projectile. So that was the best one. I had a few more hits. I think one went right in here and then one was right here, but that hit more the meat than the bone. But you can see right here, hitting that rib, even with the meat protecting it and everything, that was enough to crack it in half. So that's significant for, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Just hanging out right here. That's amazing. So the rocks were about this size, so that hit here and lodged in there. So you can see how devastating that would be to actually be hit by a sling. All right, so I don't want to do this shot multiple times because I want to do one good hit and then see what the results are. So I'm going to do a close-up shot. So I don't want to do a distance just because I really want to make sure it's one good clean shot, then I can take it apart and actually see what it did to these ribs because these big ones here are undamaged. So it's going to be a close shot and then I'm going to take it apart and see what happens. So again, we have the riveted flat mail here, we have linen underneath, and then we have the bone behind it. Now, I don't know if that sound came over or if you caught that, but from my end, at least, it sounded like a very audible crack. Very, very easy to hear, horrible sounding crunch. So let's go ahead and see what happened. I did check this. So I did check the slow-mo to make sure I saw it in the right spot. Again, this is the riveted mail. This is 29 layers of linen padding here. And the strike was right, yeah, there you go. That was right there. So this is with a bone that's significantly thicker than human ribs, right? And so even with that, with the linen padding right there and the riveted mail on top, even that blunt damage with a larger rock was enough to crack these ribs in half right there. So that was a really clean shot, really heavy. And that's going to be like a common armor. You know, steel wasn't super common in the time, but that was enough to go through everything and crack a rib. So that's a victory. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys something as well that I think is important for context about how impressive that the sling is actually breaking these bones. So these are the ribs here. So I have this rock right in here. And so you can hear and see that, but these ribs, it did not actually break them. So literally with me taking this rock, slamming it down, even that, it's separating in here, but that's not enough to actually break the bone. So the amount of velocity and speed that this thing has to be moving at in order to crack these ribs is really quite impressive, especially under all the armor. I think that just helps to provide a little bit of context as to what is happening here, how sturdy these things are, and how impressive it is to actually have one of those break like that. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd want me to move on to this, but like I've said before on the channel, this is like a replica. I don't feel comfortable stating this with any sort of assertive quality that this was period piece appropriate. This, however, I know is. So we're gonna move on now that I've kind of gone what I wanted to do with the sling. I'm gonna move on with the short sword and then the leaf type spear, and then maybe the pilum if we have time. Okay, so starting off with this here, this is a Celtic style short sword, very good for thrusting. So I'm going to try some thrusts into the mail to see if I can cause some damage behind the armor and the riveted mail. ribs kind of fell apart, so I'm gonna need to rethink how to do that test there. Overall though, just based on the thrusting that I did looking at it, it's hard to tell if I got any good actual penetration through because I can't really see where the cuts are, so that's going to be actually kind of hard to test. So what I want to do now is probably just because of for fun, I'm going to take the axe and just see if I can crack them or something. All right, very cool. That was a much better result because it was easily discernible and much easier to tell. So let's say someone had that armor on and someone had an axe. So that would be common, you know, padded gambeson or linen with riveted mail. Those strikes, the ribs right there, cracked 1 and 2 bones. That was a complete break of those 2 bones right there. That's gonna be easier to see than just like little thrusts and stuff like that. So that was, that was better. That was much better. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed my video on how to tenderize meat properly for YouTube. I didn't have time for like characters in this one. It's been a really busy, you know, couple days, work and family and everything coming into town. So just wanted to get out here and try this because I've really been excited about trying to see what would happen with this test. And I was very, very pleased with the results. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I always say, if you enjoyed this video, instead of putting a link up here to another video, go and learn a skill and have an adventure. Take some time, and if you enjoyed the slinging or anything that you saw here, try and have your own little adventure. Practice a new skill, and then in the comments below, let me know what you're trying and how it's going. And that was actually kind of funny. As you guys probably know, I have one camera out here, so I do shots and then I kind of show the range and then I basically do reaction shot with the shot, but I'm not actually hitting the target when I'm doing the shot there. I'm just throwing it kind of randomly. Well, I was standing over there just not paying attention. I actually hit the armor here, so that was that mark right in here. So a good little indent right there on that armor. Wasn't planning on hitting it today, but sometimes you just are kind of just swinging around, it happens. So if you wanted to know what happened here, that was it. I'm not going to do much more damage to this because this is a newer one, but just thought you should see the results of the work right in there. So nice little dent, I would say.